You know what the problem with humans is? They name their death machines after flowers and their actual weapons of mass destruction after adorable animals. Take it from me, Vorkath, senior xenobiologist for the Galactic Concordance. I have spent 17 cycles studying these bizarre primates, and I still cannot predict what they will do next. But let me tell you about the day I learned to fear a creature called a honey badger. It started on a Tuesday. Well, that is what the humans call it anyway. We were having our monthly species integration meeting at Station Meridian, a massive orbital platform that serves as neutral ground for the 73-member species of the Concordance. These meetings are usually boring beyond belief. The Quilshian ambassador complains about trade routes. The Heptarch representative demands better lighting in their quarters. The usual nonsense. Then Commander Eliza Hartwell walked in with a cage. Now, I need to explain something about Commander Hartwell. She stands roughly 1.7 meters tall, which is short by galactic standards. She has auburn hair that she keeps in what humans call a ponytail, and she possesses this unsettling habit of smiling right before delivering catastrophically bad news. The humans had sent her as their military liaison 3 months prior, and she had already caused 6 separate diplomatic incidents. I liked her immediately. The cage she carried was small, maybe half a meter in each dimension. Inside, I could see something black and white moving around. It looked fluffy, almost cute, if I am being honest. High Chancellor Rixovan, a Quellan whose species evolved from aquatic predators, raised 3 of his 7 eyebrows. His translucent skin rippled with what I recognized as irritation. "Commander Hartwell," he said in that wet, gurgling voice that always reminded me of backed-up plumbing. "We did not authorize you to bring pets to a council session." Eliza set the cage down on the conference table with a soft thunk. That smile appeared on her face. "Oh no. This is not a pet, Chancellor," she said cheerfully. "This is my response to your request for Earth to provide a security consultant for the upcoming expedition to Breach World 7. Breach World 7. Even saying the name made my dorsal spines itch. It was a planet on the edge of concordance space, recently discovered and absolutely teeming with hostile megafauna. The initial survey team had lost 40% of its members. The second survey team had lost 60%. The third team had refused to go. The Concordance needed that planet. It sat on top of the largest deposit of Chronium ore ever discovered, and Chronium was essential for faster-than-light travel. Without it, our entire civilization would eventually grind to a halt. But nobody, and I mean nobody, wanted to set foot on that death trap again. "A security consultant," Rixovan repeated slowly. "You are suggesting that this small mammal can protect a survey team on one of the most dangerous planets ever catalogued." "Not suggesting, Chancellor. Guaranteeing." The creature in the cage made a sound. It was not a cute sound. It was somewhere between a growl, a hiss, and what I imagined torture sounds like. Every species in that room took an involuntary step backward, except Eliza, who just kept smiling. Ambassador Threndel, a massive Korthian whose species are basically sentient rocks, leaned forward. His voice rumbled like a landslide. "What is it?" "This," Eliza said, tapping the cage affectionately, "is a honey badger. Scientific name, Mellivora capensis. And before you ask, yes, the name is deceptive. There is nothing sweet about this animal." I activated my datapad and pulled up Earth's biological database. What I found made my secondary heart skip a beat. "Commander," I said carefully, "according to this, the honey badger is considered one of the most fearless animals on Earth. It says here that they have been observed attacking lions, stealing from crocodiles, and surviving venomous snake bites that would kill creatures 10 times their size." "That is correct, Vorkath. Good research." "It also says they have been known to break into human vehicles, dismantle complex locks, and once ate through the wall of a concrete bunker over the course of 3 days just to reach food they wanted." "Also correct." Counselor Mixara, an insectoid vrel, whose species values logic above all else, clicked her mandibles together skeptically. "Commander, I do not understand. Why would you bring such a creature here? Why would you suggest we bring something this dangerous to an already dangerous planet?" Eliza looked around the room, making eye contact with each of us in turn. When she spoke, her voice was dead serious. "Because on Earth, we have a saying. When you need something done, and you need it done right, and you do not care about how messy it gets, you send in the honey badger. That cannot possibly be a real saying, Trembled rumbled. You are right. I made it up just now. But the principle stands. Nixovan's skin flushed a darker shade of blue, indicating rising anger. This is absurd. We asked for military support, tactical expertise, perhaps some of your advanced weaponry. Instead, you bring us a small carnivorous mammal? This is insulting. The thing in the cage made that sound again. Louder this time. It pressed its face against the bars, and I got my first good look at its eyes. They were black, beady, and contained absolutely zero fear. Just cold, calculating malice. Let me tell you a story, Eliza said, pulling up a chair and sitting backward on it in that distinctly human way. About 50 years ago, on Earth, there was a nature reserve in Africa. A place called Moholoholo. They had a honey badger there named Stoffel. I fail to see the relevance, Mixara clicked. Oh, you will. See, Stoffel kept escaping. First time he figured out how to open the gate latch. So they put a lock on it. He picked the lock. They got a better lock. He found tools. Actual tools. He used rocks, sticks, even mud balls he shaped himself to break out. Impossible, breathed Counselor Jex, a timid Porganian whose species had been prey animals for most of their evolutionary history. Tool use requires high intelligence. Exactly. So they put him in a new enclosure. Higher walls. He piled up rocks and climbed out. They removed the rocks. He dug under the walls. They reinforced the foundation. He figured out how to open the gate from the inside by watching the zookeepers. When they finally put him in an enclosure they thought was escape-proof, you know what he did? We all waited. He befriended the otters in the neighboring enclosure, convinced them to help him, and used them as accomplices to escape. Not once. 7 times. The room fell silent, except for the humming of the station's life support systems. You are telling us, I said slowly, that this creature has problem-solving skills comparable to sentient species. I am telling you, Eliza replied, that honey badgers do not care about your problems, your walls, your plans, or your expectations. They have one setting, and that setting is, make it work or die trying. And they very rarely die. Trembled crossed his massive stone arms. Even if what you say is true, one small animal cannot protect an entire survey team. Want to bet? Oh no. That smile again. Eliza stood up and addressed the council formally. I propose a test. Place your best security personnel in the simulation chamber. Program it with threats equivalent to what we would face on Breach World 7. Then release Peaches here and see what happens. Peaches? I could not help but ask. You named this apex predator Peaches? I told you. Humans name things weird. Are we doing this or not? Nixovan's skin rippled through several colors before settling on resigned purple. Fine. But when this fails, Earth will provide actual military support. Agreed? Agreed. But when this works, you will authorize human protocols for the expedition. Human protocols? You will see. 20 minutes later, we were all gathered in the observation deck above Simulation Chamber 3. Below us, 5 of the Concordance's finest security officers stood ready. There was Grix, a Korthian enforcer who could punch through steel. Thessel, a Quellan tactical specialist with enhanced reflexes. Merkson, a Vrel combat engineer with 4 arms and twice as many weapons. Jex had even volunteered Vika, one of his own species, though Porcanians are not known for combat prowess. Rounding out the team was Zara, a human marine sergeant who had specifically requested to participate. The simulation activated. The chamber transformed into a replica of Breach World 7's jungle environment. Thick vegetation everywhere. Humidity at 90%. And then the threats began spawning. First came the razorwings, flying predators with serrated feathers that could slice through armor. The team formed up immediately, working with practiced efficiency. Grix provided a shield wall. Thessel picked off targets with precision shooting. Merkson deployed automated turrets. Zara moved with fluid grace, covering blind spots. They were good. Really good. Then Eliza opened Peach's cage. The honey badger emerged, sniffed the air once, and charged directly at a razorwing that had been diving toward Vika. The Porcanian screamed. The razorwing adjusted its trajectory to attack this new threat. Big mistake. Peaches leaped, twisted in midair with impossible agility, caught the razorwing by its throat, and rode it down to the ground while tearing into its neck with teeth and claws. The whole encounter took maybe 3 seconds. The razor wing stopped moving. Peaches looked around, spotted another target, and bolted. "By the void," Trembled whispered. The simulation escalated. Thornback crawlers, massive arthropods with venomous stingers, emerged from the undergrowth. The security team engaged them with heavy weapons. One of the crawlers broke through their line and headed straight for Merkson. Peaches intercepted it. I watched, horrified and fascinated, as this tiny earth mammal latched onto the crawler's back, ignored the stingers that stabbed into its flesh over and over, and systematically tore apart the creature's neural cluster. The crawler thrashed. Peaches held on. The crawler died. Peaches did not even slow down. "How is it still moving?" Mixara demanded. "Those stingers should have killed it 5 times over." Eliza pulled up a biological readout on her datapad. Honey badgers have extremely loose skin and a high resistance to venom. Plus, their pain tolerance is off the charts. Peaches here has probably been stung by bees, bitten by snakes, and clawed by big cats more times than I can count. This is a Tuesday for her. The simulation threw everything at them. Acid-spitting melthorns, pack-hunting bladetails, even a juvenile titan maw, a 40-ton monstrosity that could swallow a human whole. The security team fought brilliantly, but they were getting overwhelmed. Injuries mounted. Ammunition ran low. Peaches thrived. The honey badger moved through the battlefield like a miniature force of nature. Nothing was too big to attack. Nothing was too dangerous to engage. When a bladetail pack surrounded Vika, Peaches scattered them with sheer audacity, going for eyes and throats with surgical precision. When the titan maw threatened to overrun everyone, Peaches climbed its leg, ran up its back, and started attacking its ear canal. You have not truly experienced horror until you have watched a 3-meter-tall apex predator flee in terror from a 12-kilogram mammal that will not stop trying to eat its brain through its ear. The simulation ended. The security team stood there, exhausted, bleeding, and staring at Peaches with expressions I can only describe as religious awe. The honey badger sat in the middle of the chamber, grooming herself casually, surrounded by the corpses of simulated threats. Zara limped over to Peaches, knelt down, and offered her a treat from her pocket. Peaches took it, chewed thoughtfully, and made a sound that might have been contentment. "She is magnificent," Zara said reverently. Back in the observation deck, nobody spoke for a full minute. Finally, Trembled broke the silence. "I have changed my mind. I am terrified of Earth." "Reasonable response," I muttered. Nixoven's skin had gone completely white, which in Quellens indicates profound shock. "Commander Hartwell, your proposal is accepted. Earth will lead the expedition to breach World 7 using human protocols. But I have one question." "Shoot. If honey badgers are this effective, and they are not even the apex predators on your world, what happens when we encounter something that actually scares humans?" Eliza's smile could have powered a small star. "Chancellor, on Earth we have approximately 8.7 million species. Some of them can fly. Some of them can swim to depths that would crush this station. Some of them have venom that can kill in seconds. Some of them are invisible. Some of them are microscopic. And humans? We domesticated or eliminated most of the ones that were actually dangerous to us. The ones that are left? We keep them around because we think they are cool." She gestured to Peaches, who had finished grooming and was now staring at Nixoven with those soulless black eyes. "So, to answer your question, Chancellor, you should hope you never encounter something that scares humans. Because if we are scared, that means run." I filed my report that evening with shaking appendages. In it, I recommended that the Concordance treat humanity not as a species to be integrated, but as a species to be very, very carefully managed. A species that considers honey badgers acceptable security consultants is not a species that plays by normal rules. 3 days later, we departed for breach. World 7. The expedition consisted of 23 personnel from various species, full scientific equipment, enough weapons to fight a small war, and 1 honey badger in a specially reinforced transport cage. Peaches spent the entire journey staring at the lock. I did not sleep well. Breach World 7 looked exactly like the kind of planet that wants you dead. From orbit, it appeared almost beautiful. Swirling green continents covered in dense jungle. 3 silver moons hanging in a purple sky. oceans that sparkled like liquid mercury. Then you looked closer at the atmospheric readings and realized that the entire ecosystem was essentially one giant food chain where everything ate everything else, and the only question was who got to do the eating. Our landing site was designated Zone 12, a relatively flat plateau near the Chronium deposits. I say relatively flat because it still had a 60-degree incline in places and was surrounded by jungles so thick that our scanners could barely penetrate 20 meters. The landing shuttle touched down with a hiss of hydraulics. Through the viewport, I could see movement in the tree line. Lots of movement. Sensors are picking up approximately 200 life forms within immediate range, announced Dr. Marcus Keller, the human xenobiologist who had volunteered for the expedition. He was tall, thin, and had this irritating habit of staying calm in situations that should absolutely warrant panic. Nothing larger than 5 meters. Yet, I repeated flatly. That is not comforting, Marcus. Was not trying to be comforting. Was trying to be accurate. Captain Voresh, a grizzled Korthian who had commanded 3 successful expeditions to hostile worlds, stood at the front of our group. His stone face was carved into a permanent scowl. Listen up, everyone. Standard protocol. We establish perimeter first. Science teams stay inside the shield generators until we confirm the area is secure. Security teams form 3 overlapping zones, and someone please release that cursed earth creature before it tears through another cage door. Peaches had indeed been working on the lock for the past hour. She was making progress too. Several deep scratches marked the mechanism, and I could swear she was studying the internal components every time someone opened it to feed her. Eliza stepped forward, unsealed the cage, and Peaches bounded out like she had been personally insulted by being confined. The honey badger hit the ground running, immediately started sniffing around the perimeter, and then froze. Every species in the expedition knew that posture. Predator stance. Something was wrong. Contact! Shouted Thessel from the eastern sensor array. Multiple signatures incoming fast. They burst from the jungle like missiles with teeth. Skyrakers. We had called them during the previous expeditions. Think of a velociraptor, but with 6 legs, crystalline scales that deflected energy weapons, and a hunting strategy based on overwhelming prey through sheer numbers. 20 of them, maybe more, moving in perfect coordination. The security teams opened fire. Plasma bolts lit up the clearing. Kinetic rounds punched through scales. 3 Skyrakers went down, then 5. But they kept coming, adapting their approach, using fallen trees for cover. Peaches charged directly into the middle of them. No, Marcus yelled, but it was too late. The honey badger had already latched onto the lead Skyraker's leg, climbed up its flank, and started tearing into the soft tissue behind its skull plates. The creature thrashed wildly, slamming Peaches against the ground repeatedly. Peaches held on. The Skyraker eventually stopped moving. Peaches jumped off, spotted another target, and launched herself at it with the same reckless strategy. No hesitation, no fear, just pure aggressive intent. She is going to get herself killed. Mixara clicked nervously from inside the shield perimeter. Probably, Eliza agreed. But she is going to take a lot of them with her. The battle lasted 7 minutes. When it ended, we had lost 2 automated turrets, sustained minor injuries to 3 security personnel, and killed or driven off every single Skyraker. Peaches sat in the middle of the carnage, bleeding from multiple wounds, calmly eating part of a Skyraker she had claimed as her prize. Dr. Helena Voss, our medic, approached cautiously with a medical scanner. Commander, she needs treatment. Multiple lacerations, possible internal bleeding, and her right foreleg is definitely fractured. Good luck treating her, Eliza said. Last time a vet tried to examine her, they needed 3 assistants and a sedative strong enough to drop a horse. She still escaped twice. Helena knelt slowly, speaking in soft tones. Peaches looked up, made that terrible growling hissing sound, and went back to eating. Helena very carefully ran the scanner over her. Incredible, Helena breathed. Her healing factor is already engaged. White blood cell count is through the roof. The fracture is already beginning to set itself. And look at this. She pointed to a deep gash that had been bleeding profusely 30 seconds ago. It had already clotted and started closing. Honey badgers are hard to kill, Marcus explained. Evolution designed them to survive encounters with much larger predators. Fast healing, high pain tolerance, and sheer stubborn refusal to die. I want one, rumbled Captain Voresh. For my ship? No, Eliza said firmly. You really do not. We established base camp over the next 4 hours. Shield generators hummed to life, creating an energy barrier that would stop most threats. Prefabricated structures assembled themselves into labs, quarters, and a command center. Survey drones launched to map the surrounding territory. Everything went smoothly. Too smoothly. That night, during my watch, I noticed Peaches pacing along the shield perimeter. She was staring at something in the jungle. Not randomly scanning. Focused. Intent. I activated my comm. Eliza, you should see this. She arrived within a minute, still pulling on her jacket. What is wrong? Look at Peaches. She has been doing that for 20 minutes. Eliza studied the honey badger, then pulled out binoculars and scanned the tree line. I do not see anything. Neither do I. But she does. We stood there in silence, watching Peaches watch something we could not see. Then Marcus joined us, then Thessal, then Captain Voresh. Soon, half the expedition was standing at the perimeter, staring into darkness because a 12-kilogram mammal had decided something was worth her attention. This is ridiculous, Mike-Sara finally said. We are taking tactical cues from an animal that has better survival instincts than any of us, I pointed out. The attack came at dawn, not from the jungle, from below. The ground erupted in 17 places simultaneously. Burrowers, massive worm-like creatures with circular mouths full of rotating teeth, exploded upward through soil that should have been too dense to penetrate. They were each easily 15 meters long and thick as a cargo container. The shield generators had not been designed to stop subterranean threats. Fall back to the shuttle, Voresh roared. Fighting retreat pattern Delta. Chaos erupted. A burrower surged up directly beneath one of our supply tents, swallowing it whole. Another wrapped around a security barrier and crushed it like paper. Thessal coordinated defensive fire, but plasma bolts barely scratched their hide. We needed heavy weapons, and those were stored in containers that were currently scattered across a battlefield. Then I saw something that made my brain briefly refuse to process information. Peaches had jumped into one of the burrowers' mouths. Deliberately, voluntarily. She had looked at a 15-meter death worm and decided that the best course of action was to climb inside it. Did she just commit suicide? Mike-Sara shrieked. Wait, Eliza said calmly. The burrower thrashed. Then it stopped thrashing and started convulsing. Its movements became erratic, desperate. It slammed itself against the ground repeatedly, trying to dislodge whatever was inside it. A wet tearing sound echoed across the battlefield. The creature's skin bulged in odd places. Peaches emerged from a hole she had torn through its side, covered in absolutely unspeakable fluids, and immediately attacked the next closest burrower. She ate her way out, Marcus said in a voice approaching religious wonder. She ate her way through a burrower from the inside. New plan, Voresh announced. Provide covering fire for the small, terrifying earth beast. It became less of a battle and more of a massacre after that. Once Peaches demonstrated the burrower's vulnerability, our teams adapted. Thessal started targeting the spots where Peaches had weakened their armor. Grix used his massive strength to hold their mouths open while others fired inside. Zara organized a squad that specifically created openings for Peaches to exploit. We lost some equipment and sustained injuries, but no fatalities. The burrowers retreated underground, presumably to inform their species that attacking this particular location was a terrible idea. Peaches found a puddle, washed herself off with remarkable thoroughness, and then walked directly back to Eliza and sat at her feet like nothing had happened. Eliza gave her approximately half a kilogram of dried meat. Good girl. I am filing a report, I told her, recommending that every Concordance expedition carry a minimum of 3 honey badgers. Vorkath, you cannot just requisition honey badgers. They are not military equipment. After what I just witnessed, I disagree strongly. The next week proceeded similarly. We would establish survey points. Local fauna would attack. Peaches would demonstrate why attacking was a poor life choice. The fauna would learn. We would gather Chronium samples. Repeat. She saved Mike-Sara from a canopy strangler, one of those snake tree hybrid horrors that drops on victims from above. She drove off a pack of gloom stalkers that hunted using sound in complete darkness. She even somehow convinced a territorial spikeback to leave our mining site by simply refusing to back down during a staring contest that lasted 4 hours. The other species in the expedition developed almost superstitious reverence for her. Vika started leaving food offerings near her sleeping spot. Grix carved a small statue of her from local stone. Thessel wrote a combat manual based on her tactics titled Principles of Disproportionate Response. But the real test came on day 11 when we reached the primary Chronium deposit. The mine entrance was a natural cave system that descended almost 2 kilometers underground. Sensors indicated the largest concentration of ore was at the bottom level, in a cavern roughly the size of a sports stadium. They also indicated something else. That cannot be right, Marcus said, studying the readings. According to this, there is a single life form down there. Mass estimate approximately 80 tons. 80 tons, Varesh repeated slowly. That would make it the largest creature recorded on this planet. By a factor of 4, Helena added helpfully. Eliza looked at Peaches, who was already sniffing toward the cave entrance with interest. Thoughts? The honey badger made a sound I had not heard before. Lower pitched, almost contemplative. Then she trotted toward the entrance. I think that means let us find out, I translated. We descended in 3 groups. Heavy security first, then science teams, then support personnel. The cave walls glittered with Chronium veins, reflecting our lights in hypnotic patterns. The air grew warmer as we went deeper. And the smell, oh, that smell, like rotting vegetation mixed with sulfur and something metallic. The cavern opened up before us like a cathedral built by something that hated beauty. Stalactites hung like fangs. Pools of luminescent liquid bubbled randomly. And in the center, coiled around the largest Chronium deposit I had ever seen, was the creature. Imagine a dragon. Now make it worse. This thing had 6 legs, each ending in claws the size of our shuttle. Scales that shifted color to match its surroundings. 3 heads, each with different adaptations. One for crushing, one for rending, one for breathing a toxic spray that could dissolve most known materials. And eyes. So many eyes. Different sizes, different positions, all tracking us simultaneously. Apex predator, Thessel whispered. This is what killed the previous expeditions. The creature made a sound that I felt in my bones more than heard. A subsonic rumble that communicated one very clear message. You are in my territory. Leave or die. Our weapons would be useless. Our shields would not hold. We were outmatched by every possible metric. The smart move was to retreat, regroup, and request serious military intervention. Peaches walked forward. Just walked, calmly, deliberately, straight toward a creature that could swallow her in one bite without noticing. She stopped about 20 meters away and made that terrible growling, hissing sound. The dragon thing noticed her. All 3 heads focused on this tiny intruder. It made another subsonic rumble, louder this time, clearly confused about why such a small creature would dare approach. Peaches stood her ground. Then she charged. What happened next lasted maybe 90 seconds but felt like hours. The dragon thing tried to crush her. Peaches dodged. It tried to grab her with its claws. She climbed up its leg. It tried to shake her off. She held on and started clawing toward its neck. It tried toxic spray. She either dodged or simply ignored the effects. And slowly, gradually, impossibly, the dragon thing stopped attacking and started defending. Started backing up. Started making sounds that were less aggressive and more confused. Peaches reached one of the heads and latched onto its ear. Not biting. Just holding. Making a point. The creature froze completely. Is she? Marcus said slowly. Establishing dominance. I think. Eliza replied with that smile. She is explaining the new social hierarchy. The dragon thing very carefully, very slowly, lowered itself to the ground. Peaches released its ear, climbed down, and walked back to us like she had just taken a casual stroll. Behind her, the creature remained motionless, except for all its eyes tracking her movement. Did that just happen? Mixera asked. We all saw it, I confirmed. Therefore, logically, yes. Captain Voresh stepped forward and addressed the dragon thing directly. We will take the Chronium ore. In exchange, we will not bring back the small aggressive one. This seems fair, yes? One of the heads nodded. Actually nodded. We extracted 70 tons of Chronium over the next 3 days. The dragon thing watched but never interfered. Occasionally it would make a sound, and Peaches would respond with a grunt. I swear they were communicating. On our last day, before we left, Peaches walked over to the creature one final time. They stared at each other. Some understanding passed between apex predator and Earth's most stubborn mammal. Then Peaches returned to her travel cage and actually walked inside voluntarily. The return journey was quiet. Everyone was processing what had happened, what we had witnessed, the implications for future human involvement in Concordance affairs. Mygzara eventually voiced what we were all thinking. Vorkath, in your professional opinion, what have we learned? I considered the question carefully. We have learned that humans measure threats differently than we do. We have learned that size and strength are not the only factors in survival. We have learned that sometimes the most dangerous creature is not the biggest or the strongest, but the one that simply refuses to lose. And? Prompted Eliza. And we have learned that any species capable of coexisting with honey badgers for thousands of years without going extinct is a species we should probably treat with considerably more respect. The Concordance Council agreed. 3 weeks after our return, they passed Resolution 773, informally known as the Peaches Protocol. Any expedition to hostile environments could request human support. Any human military liaison would be given equal authority with mission commanders. And perhaps most tellingly, a new position was created specifically for human advisors on dangerous wildlife. Eliza got promoted. Peaches got a formal commendation, which she immediately tried to eat, and I got reassigned to permanent human observation duty. Best career move I ever made. Terrifying, but best. Sometimes I still wake up at night thinking about that honey badger staring down an 80-ton apex predator and winning through sheer attitude. Then I remember that on Earth honey badgers are not even considered particularly unusual. They are just another species that humans named something cute, and then forgot to mention could probably survive a nuclear explosion through sheer spite. So, if you ever meet a human, and they smile that particular smile and say they have a plan, just agree. Trust me on this. Because somewhere in their evolutionary history, they looked at creatures like Peaches and said, yes, this seems fine to have around. And any species with that kind of judgment should absolutely be in charge when things get dangerous.